Afternoon. I'll call the Wednesday, March 1st, 2023 meeting of the Architecture Review Committee to order. And we'll start off, Erica, if you do a roll call for us, please.
Sure. Committee Member Carter and Committee Member Polly have let us know that they will be absent for today's meeting. So I'll go ahead and call roll. Chair Hunter,
Present.
Vice Chair Tregenza,
Here.
Committee Member Ostavar,
Here.
and Committee Member Schmidt. Here. And I can go ahead and announce staff members present. We have Principal Planner Roveri, Senior Associate Planner Schmidt, and myself, Recording Secretary Barrera.
Okay, thank you. Eric, will you also announce how members of the public can join via Zoom if they choose to do so?
Certainly. Members of the public are encouraged to join our meetings via Zoom Gov, a secure service that connects you live with no lag time. This meeting is also streamed live on youtube.com/Monterey and Comcast Channel 25. If you would like to provide public comment, please join the meeting using Zoom or by telephone, making sure to join in time to accommodate delays. To join a Zoom meeting from a computer or phone, use the link or phone numbers on the agenda posted at isearchmonterey.org. To join by telephone, dial 833-568-8864, then enter the webinar ID. Today's webinar ID is 161-914-9563. To provide public comment via Zoom, please use the raise your hand function at the bottom of your screen. To provide comments by phone, dial *9 to raise your hand, then *6 to unmute when called upon. Public commenters will be announced using their last 3 phone number digits or the name they've typed into Zoom. Public commenters will be muted until it's their turn to speak. Please turn off TV or computer speakers or go to another room while connected, as background noise interferes with the broadcast. Public speakers will be called upon in order of hands raised. There is a 3-minute time limit for today's meeting. Please stay within that limit. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Erica. We'll start off by looking at the consent items on the consent agenda, which the first one is the approval of the minutes from the February 15th, 2023 meeting.
I move to approve the consent agenda.
Okay, thank you.
I second.
Okay, a motion has been put forth by Vice Chair Tregenza and seconded by Committee Member Schmidt to approve the minutes from the previous meeting. You do a roll call vote, please, Erica?
Sure. Chair Hunter,
Aye.
Vice Chair Tregenza,
Aye.
Committee Member Ostavar.
Abstain. I was absent.
Sorry, can we make sure that there was no one from the public that wanted to comment on the?
There are 8 attendees online. I currently see no hands raised.
Okay.
So we have I from Chair Hunter, Vice Chair Tregenza, Committee Member Ostavar is abstained, Committee Member Schmidt. Okay, the minutes have a vote of 3.
All right, thank you. That is the end of the consent agenda. Open up for public comments for any item that members of the public would like to speak on that are not part of today's public appearance agenda items. Okay.
You can make
If you want to speak on,
you can make the comment after I present the item. So I'm going to give a presentation first. I will. Yeah.
right, ma'am, if this section is for public comment on items that are not on today's agenda.
Right, that's what this is about.
Okay, all right.
That's what this is about. So I wanted to present some pictures along with what I'm talking about.
Okay,
So committee members.
this will be 3 minutes. State your name, please, and 3 minutes.
My name is Lorna Moffett, and I want to inspire your board to protect trees more in your permitting process of projects that come before you, such as what happened at the Fisherman's Wharf. At least 50-year-old huge trees, Monterey pines and the rare cypress trees were cut down for that project, when the engineer architect should have been told, you must protect and design around the trees. In Oregon, the architects incorporate trees into their shopping mall and have saved 100 trees. There is an example of that below that shopping mall. We need to treat trees with more respect. They are the sacred ones. They give us life with their breath, and they keep our air moist with their transpiration. They keep us cool in hot summer days. They are the world savers, and yet our city cuts too many of them down. And now with the hysteria of fires happening around the globe, they are being blamed for our wildfires when it is the brush and the dry grasses and the fallen debris, tar shingled rooftops, wooden fences, and houses built with wood and ladder branches on the trees. Those are the true offenders. Angel Island is a good example of such hysteria. After they cut down thousands of eucalyptus trees, the fires continued even though there was hardly any trees. The lesson learned by firefighters and the citizens alike was that the project became an unintended demonstration of how forests suppress wildfires. 300 some trees were cut down last year by the Parks Department. This city, under its value driver, states how it hopes to preserve its natural resources and forestry. So I'm hoping you will start sending these huge projects as they come before you and say you have to build incorporating the trees because they are the most important. They are our salvation, and we can't just treat them like we can just cut them down. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Can I say something really quick? Thank you, Ms. Moffett, for that presentation. And I was shocked that this phase 2 project, the waterfront and parking lot, just took all those cypress trees out. And I've been on the ARC for 4 years, and that project did not come before us. So some things just don't even come across our desk, and stuff happens that's out of our control. But thank you for your presentation.
Any other comments for items not on the public agenda? Okay. All right, I'll close the consent or public comments section and move on to the public appearance items. Fernanda, do you want us to address item number 3 and comments that you mentioned on that?
So staff is recommending that item number 3, 484 Lane Street be continued to the March 15th, 2023 ARC meeting.
Okay. Should we vote on it or should we just? Okay.
Yes, we need a vote.
Okay.
Do we need a motion?
Yes.
I
we
move
need a-
to continue item number 3 to the March 15th ARC meeting.
A second.
Okay, a motion has been made by Vice Chair Tregenza and seconded by Committee Member Schmidt to move item number 3, 484 Lane Street to the March 15th meeting. You do a roll call vote, please, Erica?
Chair Hunter,
Aye.
Vice Chair Tregenza,
Aye.
Committee Member Ostavar.
Aye.
And Committee Member Schmidt.
Aye.
Okay, that item will be continued to the March 15th meeting, ARC meeting.
All right, thank you. Next, we'll move on to consider number 2, Upper Ragsdale Architectural Review Permit ARP-22-0177 for preliminary and final architectural review of new medical office building, 2 parking lots, landscaping, and tree removal permit for that project. Does staff have a presentation?
Yes, my name is Chris Schmidt. I'm a senior associate planner for the city, and I have been working on this project with the owners and architect team. To start with the recommendation, the staff recommendation is to adopt a resolution approving the preliminary and architectural review and tree removal permit with conditions of approval. I'm just quickly going through the subject property. It's located out in the Ryan Ranch area, and you can see the area of work on the right. Parking lots are proposed in the orange areas, and a new building is proposed in the yellow area. So it's a 50,585 square foot medical office building, 21 space parking lot and at the north side and 130 space parking lot at the south, as well as new landscaping. The project would require removal of 524 trees, 318 of which are protected trees because their diameters exceed 6 inches at a height of 4.5 feet above grade. So these trees require the tree removal permit. 78 replacement trees are proposed as part of a landscape plan. And then the project would also remove 15 clusters of central maritime chaparral, and 11,000 square feet of replacement habitat is proposed on site directly adjacent to the new building. The project also requires Planning Commission approval of a PUD amendment and a lot line adjustment, which has been included as part of a condition of approval for this project. So here's the site. It's part of a planned unit development that was approved back in 2002, which included 230,000 square feet of medical office space, open space, parking, and driveways. This would be the last phase of that development. The site currently contains over 170,000 square feet of medical office space. So here's that area of work again. I've already mentioned most of the details on the right here. I will add, though, that the last phase would actually be less than what was overall approved in the planned unit development. This site was originally cited for 2 buildings, and so it would be less overall parking and less overall floor area than the original proposal. So here's the proposal, siting location. And I'll just quickly go through these elevations. I have some renderings that do depict the project fairly well that I'll show after them. And just to provide a little more details, so the proposal is really, the design is really similar to what all of the other buildings out there look like. Large concrete form surfaces, wood veneer paneling, stucco siding, aluminum windows, steel beams and columns, in this case, a flat roof with parapets, and parts of it have a standing seam metal roofing at the mechanical rooms. A number of replacement trees are proposed, different species that are listed on the right there, as well as landscaping, and I do have a graphic showing the landscape plan. So this is the southeast view looking at the north side. So this is adjacent to the smaller of the 2 lots that are proposed. You can see building D on the right-hand side. That's an existing building, one of the first buildings that was constructed as part of this development. And then this is the northwest view of the south elevation, that building D on the left-hand side there, and you can see the proposed larger of the 2 parking lots. On the right, that is the habitat restoration area. The trees in that area would largely be preserved, and then whatever remaining space would be used to rehabilitate that habitat. This is a view of that south entrance adjacent to the larger parking lot. And this is a view kind of between the proposed building and building D. There were 2 components of the landscape plan that I've shown. On the first on this slide kind of shows generally the types of landscaping that are proposed, and they have a number of different areas that range from the transition from oak woodland to natural oak woodland, the parking lot landscaping, the highlighted vector that's kind of near the walkway areas, and then the chaparral restoration zone on the bottom of the graphic there, as well as kind of ornamental throughout the exterior of the building itself. And then the individual plantings are shown here. I'm not going to go through each one, though. So I'll just kind of summarize the findings for approval. Staff was able to make these 4 findings that the ARC is pretty familiar with by now. This project is similar to the existing buildings on site. It's in terms of massing and design. There are no view privacy or living impacts. There are no residential units or anything nearby, and the entire area is industrial zoned and contains commercial buildings and offices. In this direct vicinity, it's mostly medical offices. And then the proposal is also consistent with the general plan land use designation of industrial, which is primarily these days used for office uses. Staff has included the condition for the PUD amendment, which is necessary for the lot line adjustment. And then lastly, this project does use high quality materials that are compatible with the existing, and does include new trees and landscaping that are compatible with the surrounding development and the habitat area on site. The last finding is that in situations where healthy trees prevent reasonable development of permitted uses, the trees may be approved for removal. So the existing trees would prevent reasonable development of an approved PUD. Removal would be consistent with that PUD. The site, as I mentioned, was slated for 2 buildings, totaling in more square footage than they proposed today. And there is new landscaping and replacement trees proposed. So that concludes my presentation. Again, the staff recommendation is to approve the project. I am available for questions. The project architect is here as well, and I do believe he has some imagery to show as well. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Chris. The members of the committee have questions for Chris?
Yeah, thanks, Chris. Nice presentation. So we're taking out 318 trees and replacing them with what, 78, something like that?
That's right.
72? And what are the city guidelines for replacement? 1-to-1, 2-to-1, 3-to-1, and is it based on the usage of the site, or I thought it was more of a, if you take out one tree, you gotta plant 2 kind of thing.
So what the city code says, in addition to this finding for approval, is that up to 3-to-1 replacement can be required.
Mhm.
But that does include, 0 to 3, so no replacement can be required. It's what we would look at is whether the site can actually have more trees planted on site, and whether it would be done in a manner that those new trees can survive and don't cause overcrowding. And so,
Sure.
when we looked at this site, it is already fairly overcrowded. Looking at this is a little bit of an older aerial, but going to the site, there are trees and kind of all of the areas and the perimeter, as well as kind of in the interior as well. So I think that they've actually showed pretty a dense planting plan of these trees. There are a few areas that contain just shrubs on this end here. But it was a sufficient plan for this development. And I think the architect may have some information as well.
I have a follow-up to that, I guess, which is a bit of a try and avoid making comments on it. We're asking the question because I think has the city considered tree planting on offsite and or also just a fee associated with the removal? Those are policies I've seen other cities do. So it's not just about what that site can handle, but also it then becomes a financial incentive to be more creative, say with your design, be it underground parking, et cetera, these different methods. And that typically I've seen that to be what forces those teams to make those decisions, because it's financial. And if you can do surface parking, then of course they're going to say,
sure. It's a good question. So that the code does say replacement would be preferably on site. I do believe that there are options for in lieu fees. Historically, I think our staff does prefer on site because it has the property owner maintaining them indefinitely, where sometimes it's harder to have them go and water and feed trees that are off site. There have been few that I can recall of in lieu fees or off site.
and currently there isn't an option for just a fee for that removal either. Like things.
It's in the city code. I'm not aware of what the fee is, to be honest. Yeah.
Is the applicant subject to that fee in this case?
If it's a requirement of this project, we would work it out with them what the fee is. I think it might be in the fee schedule. Yeah.
But you don't know if there's going to be a fee or not.
We haven't recommended a
Okay.
in lieu fee for this
All right.
project. Yeah.
Other questions? All right, thank you, Chris. The applicant, care to make a statement? Okay, state your name, please.
Good afternoon. My name is Steve Gonzalez. I'm an architect with Nichols, Milberg and Rosetto. We've worked with Montage Health and in the Monterey area for probably the last 15 years. I think Chris did a great job of presenting the project. I don't think you folks, from what I can, if I'm reading the room correctly, have any comments on the content or the use of the project. I think there was some discussion about to respond, I think, to the trees. One of the things, if you look at the arborist report, the arborist states that the trees that we're removing are in an area where there's substantial overcrowding, resulting in poor health. And the trees that are being removed, many of them are like 5 trunks coming out of a single common root area. So, there, in general, I would say that these trees are in declining health, and not only in this particular area where the lower parking field is, where the preponderance of the trees are being proposed to be removed, but throughout a lot of the Ryan Ranch area, I think you have the same kind of overcrowding and declining health of trees, just from my observations driving around and looking at the area. It's worth pointing out that if you're considering trees 6 inches in diameter at 4.5 feet, we're actually proposing to remove fewer trees under this 2019 application than was approved with the planned unit development back in 2002. At least according to my count. It's a little difficult to compare apples and apples over a 20-year span, but I believe that's a true statement. The original proposal did have underground parking. Unfortunately, with underground parking, in order to construct the underground parking, you disrupt basically the equivalent area that we're disrupting for the lower parking field. And one of the exhibits, I believe it's on the site demolition plan, which would be in the package that you have, I think, under attachment A, kind of shows the outline of our best estimate of what that area of disruption or disturbance would have been had the project that was approved in 2002 gone forward. So, our company, and I know Montage Health, we value the environment. We're not here to just recklessly remove trees. But looking at the stand of trees that we had to work with, we don't see a lot of salvageable area there. And the specimen trees that are on the site, I think there were 7 of them in the arborist report, 24 inches in diameter or greater. One of them is dead. It was a beautiful tree at one point in time, 38-inch diameter coastal live oak. But the preponderance of the other specimen trees we are saving. And they're clustered more or less on what would be the south westerly corner of the site. And they're in an area where they're not subject to overcrowding, like the balance of the site is. So, we did deliberately design our parking fields and entries, so that those trees, which I think are the best that you've got on the site, could be retained. With respect to replanting on the 2 Upper Ragsdale site, I don't really see a lot of opportunity to do that. I mean, the areas that would be subject to replanting, and I'm not talking about a tree here, a tree there, but widespread replanting are already forested. And sadly, I think they're in kind of the same situation where there's overcrowding, where the trees, there's too many trees competing for sunlight and nutrients out of the soil, resulting in canopy fragmentation and overall poor health. So I don't think on-site planting, other than we can get a few trees in here and there to be sure, but a 2-to-1 or something for 300 trees, there's no way you're going to get that on this site, my opinion. And I think our arborist would agree with me on that point. So unless you have something else you'd like me to address, I'll just throw it open to your questions at this point.
Okay, thank you. Any questions from committee members for the applicant?
I guess quick clarification on the plan. Maybe I didn't look at it carefully enough. The south, it sounded like the south west, and then the north. Some of those are actually preserved landscape and trees on the site plan.
Yeah, if Chris, if you wanted to bring up the tree preservation plan, we can kind of look at it. I don't even know if I'm probably not giving, it's Exhibit A, probably sheet A010.
Right. So that uncolored portion is essentially untouched. Is that? The arch, is that area?
That is our restoration area that you see that's off that perimeter drive. That one will work. We can talk from that. So the area immediately plan east of the building.
Yep.
That's our restoration area, and it's left, all the trees that are in that are existing to remain.
Okay.
We're not proposing to remove any. The specimen trees that we've got, if you look at kind of that green area that is at the bottom left-hand corner of the new development, that's the location where most of the existing, what I call specimen trees, are located. I think 5 of the 7 over 24-inch in diameter, I could have that math a little wrong, are located in that area. And we're definitely cutting our parking field off short to preserve those. I will say that our healthcare practitioners that are going to occupy this building would prefer more parking, but we've held the line that we can't provide any more than we are. So we're trying to strike a balance in that regard.
Any other questions? No? Okay. Thank you very much for your presentation.
You're very welcome.
Thank you. On this, we'll open this up for comments from the public that would like to comment on this agenda item. If you come up, make a statement, state your name, and be limited to 3 minutes.
Yes, could you show that? 1 second. I have been up to that area, and those are scrub oaks. They don't grow very, very big, and they are very, very healthy. Trees, they have now found out, do very, very well crowded because they nurture each other by their roots. This was found out by the scientist who wrote the book, Finding the Mother Tree. And so when you disturb all that soil, you're killing all the microzoa that actually retains water and gives sugar to all the trees, and the trees in exchange give nutrients to this microzoa. So those trees are fine. I think this architecture firm needs to go back to underground parking. I don't buy the story that that's going to cause more damage. I don't see how, because they're going to be building on that site. So they dig underneath first on that site. And so it's just that area that they're building in that they're putting that underground parking. I don't see how they're going to have to cause a lot of destruction. I'd like to say that 300 trees supply 78,000 pounds of oxygen a year, and 300 trees a year takes in 13,600 pounds of carbon a year, and one large oak tree can transpire 40,000 gallons a year. So our rainfall will be reduced, the wildlife will be reduced, and you can't mitigate because it takes 50 years, sometimes 100, for these oak trees to go back to the size they were. So once again, it is a travesty to say that this is a mitigation negative declaration previously circulated. I mean, that's just criminal, because it goes against everything CEQA tries too hard to protect, resources that our very lives depend upon, because removing so many trees hugely affects the air, the water, the soil, the wildlife. And what is Chomp going to be bringing in? Tons of cement, building products made with wood, tons of trucks and pollution and noise pollution. So by refusing this permit and saying to them, you have to go back and you have to integrate the trees, you're going to have to do that. And you're going to have to, either find another spot where there's less trees, or prove to us that you can now be more creative, as we are showing you in this picture that architects do. And they could hire a consultant from the firms that are doing that all over this nation now. And we are in a climate crisis. We cannot any longer say that one tree or 300 trees doesn't matter, because it matters incredibly. And that's all I have to say. So thank you.
Thank you. Any other members of the public wish to comment on this agenda item?
There are 2 hands raised online. I can call them in order of hands raised. We have
Okay, please.
Caitlin Richardson. I've asked her to unmute. Are you online?
I'm sorry, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yeah.
I apologize. My name is Caitlin Richardson, and I just wanted to support the woman who's just speaking. I apologize, I didn't catch her name. I support the idea of looking for better ways to go around cutting down trees, as I do support environmental measures as much as possible. I'm also, I had raised my hand earlier on a earlier item, but I don't think they caught that, or I don't know if there was comments allowed at that time, but I'll wait until after this item has been discussed. Thanks.
Okay, thank you. Who's up next, Erica?
Sorry, telephone call, last three digits 902.
Good afternoon. My name is Nina Beatty. This is not 2002. We're now 21 years later, and this of an evaluation that was done over 20 years ago of environmental impacts is missing the urgency that with which we are confronted environmentally. Decisions that may have been made at that time that ignored those issues can't be made any longer. Ms. Moffitt's comments about oxygen, about water retention, about carbon sequestration. This is a large group of trees that CEQA would say there was essentially no environmental impacts, and or any that could be that existed could be mitigated is ridiculous. And an overhead look at that property shows the before and after, shows an incredible change to the environment that certainly eliminates habitat for birds, for reptiles, for any type of wildlife there, as well as the chaparral that the report itself admits, the city's agenda report admits is sensitive. These are stands of chaparral that are not that normally found. And chaparral takes a very, very long time to grow. We don't have lightning like in other areas. So chaparral is a species well suited to the coast, but that will be, much of that will be eliminated. This is not reasonable development. The planning direction increasingly is infill. This is not infill. This is part of the old sprawl philosophy that we despise in San Jose and Los Angeles, but lo and behold, here it is. Park a lot of buildings out in an area that was formerly wild. It was a poor idea when it was proposed initially, and now it's exposed even more as a poor idea. Any impacts to the forest, the existing forest that still exists from all the buildings developed around it, you have disturbed underground microorganisms, you have runoff from the roads, the parking lots, the rooftops that are now impacting these trees. You've destroyed the community as a whole of trees, the toxins from the construction, the paving that goes on, the proximity to Fort Ord toxins, as well as the cellular antennas on the nearby building. Those are all impacting those trees, and yet they still live, and they live well. You're sending a message that this is okay. I am again not surprised that the city has not even thought to enact fees to try to stop this, to try to slow it down, to say, no, we're not going to have these trees killed. And I don't.
Okay. Thank you. I'm sorry, your time has expired there. Thank you for your comments. Any other members, public, online, or in the chamber wish to speak?
I don't see any more hands raised.
Okay. All right, we'll close public comment on this item and open up for committee member comments and discussion.
I'll jump in. That wasn't, wasn't expecting this today, but Yeah, I mean, to call that stand of trees an unhealthy stand, and yet it's wall to wall trees. It looks like they're doing just fine from what I saw from the overhead picture. If, you know, there's probably some thinning that could be done, but I think that would be that's just a forest management thing. It doesn't mean we just cut them all down and pave over the footprint. It looks to me like Chomp is trying to get as many parking spaces as efficiently squared into a rectangle as possible. And then we're gonna just, you know, plant some median trees just to make it look nice. But yeah, this is not 2002. You know, it's kind of a scary time. It's a brave new world. And I think we really have to step back and look at these situations where we have, you know, I don't know how many acres that stand of trees is, 1 acre or 1.5 acres or something like that. But yeah, every acre counts. And yeah, if there's a possibility it just seems like the city, yeah, it's just like, yeah, it's Chomp, you know, we all like Chomp and everything, you know, they do is great for the community, and it's great to have them here. And so, yeah, they need a parking lot for their staff. And instead of like, we have an opportunity to, you know, to save something that has been that way for millennia. And I'd really like to look at what other alternatives there are. I mean, could we work around the trees that are there? Can we do underground without disturbing the roots? Can we, you know, is there, you know, are we going to be driving cars as much as we are now in 20 years or 30 years? Hopefully not. Are there mass transit options? Is there, instead of just like, okay, yeah, that makes sense. This was okay. This is better than it was 20 years ago. Let's just do it and get on with it. And, you know, next item. That's my opinion.
Patrick, any other members? Kelly?
I'm sorry, Chris, I might have missed it in the packet. When was the tree study done, the arborist report?
It was done towards the end of 2022.
Thank you.
Any other comments?
Yeah, these are not easy situations. I feel conflicted usually because, I mean, given the parameters that were probably given to the designers and of the team, they did a good job. Like there's the content of what's there, the quality of the parking. I'm sure there's some other measures in there for stormwater runoff and things like that. But given it depends on the parameters you're given often, right? So if there's incentive to do that, that's what's going to happen. That's sort of just the tendency. And I don't exactly know. We're as a committee, we're commenting on what we're hearing from the community, and perhaps there's backlash from something like the parking lot, which I was a little surprised to see as well. In Monterey by the where those trees were removed as well. So there becomes an urgency to really revisit and look at policies, I think, and figure out what are some of the methods that can be done. Is it charging fees? Is it not? Are there ways to test and make sure that team really did I guess tighten the screws on their designs and make sure it was the best that they could do. I see that they saved some areas. That's great. It's actually pretty, you know, as far as the site goes, a fairly significant area. Again, the design as far as parking lots go, it's actually a pretty good design. There's quite a number of trees. That'll probably do quite a bit in shade cover and everything for the parking lot. But it's hard to feel like it's really been tested to show that it's really preserved as many of those trees as possible, given those parameters is what it seems like. So that's where I don't, you know, given what they were given, it seems like they did a good job with that. The question I have is that something for us right now to decide to pump the brakes and ask the planning department to give them stricter parameters or not? That feels like that's sort of the question we have in front of us.
Thank you. Shelley, any comments? Okay. I have no comments to add. I'll call for a motion if someone would like to raise this or continue discussion if you'd like.
I would be, I don't have a problem with the building itself. I think the design is nice and I'm sure it's going to do good for our community. I would just, so I don't have a problem, making a motion to approve the architectural permit. But I do have a problem with the tree removal and the parking lots. So is there a way I can make a half a motion or a motion with we would like to come back and see another parking lot ideas?
You can delete elements from the resolution. Like you can approve the building, disapprove the parking or the tree removal permit. So you can pick what
What I
you
want
want
to, okay.
to approve.
So I'll go ahead and make a motion and see if it gets seconded. I don't know if it will or not. So I will move to approve 2 Upper Ragsdale Drive architectural review permit ARP 22-0177 for preliminary and final architectural review of a new medical office building. And that's it. I'm not going to make a motion to approve the parking lots. Is that enough?
Can you, just, I guess, from your motion, can you exclude approval of the parking lot and tree removal permit?
Yeah,
If
so
that's
that
what
would-
you're,
So
on-
my approval of the ARP permit would exclude the parking lot, landscaping and tree removal permit.
Is there room for any discussion with the planning department at all on that too, or are we're moving quickly past that?
No, we can, because I'm not sure the best way to proceed with that. I think we need to have the discussion with the planning department personnel to see how to best proceed with this. So, yes. So did you have a question you wanted to ask?
we did have the mitigation measures pulled up from the tree ordinance. That gives you a list of the options that we have for requiring replacements or payments in lieu.
And I guess that I'm just trying to see what, if we kicked it back to planning, what would they do?
Continued it.
Well, what would they do if they're just, I guess the question is planning going to enforce these more strictly? Because that's where there's sort of you tried really hard, therefore we're allowing you to remove these trees without penalty, is what it sounded like. And you can clarify if I'm misinterpreting that, but and so I think what I've heard in this recommendation was that there's a revisiting of the parking to see if that can be undergrounded or something like that, or would that be considered over and above that? That's what we're trying to, I think, navigate, is figure out if that ask will just be kicked back and said that's too onerous. I forget what the wording was for.
Yeah, I guess I think it's important to give maybe go back and give some further background information about the PUD, and that that these developments are vested, and that this was always the plan, was to remove all of the trees in this area and to build a completely different structure. So in looking at this, we certainly try the best we can, and I'm sorry, I share my screen, to preserve as many trees as we can, but this was something that was planned a number of years ago, and the intent was always to remove them. And in terms of staff's opinion on this, we are actually getting more landscaping and kind of open space than the original would have provided. And the original project did not include any sort of off-site planting or anything like that. So
And some of it's, I guess, then it's honoring previous approvals because there's obviously lots of investment and work that goes into getting to a certain stage. And so that it's sort of part of it's the city trying to say, we understand that you had a trust in our agreement, even though it was several years ago, 20 years ago, 15 years
Yeah,
ago.
I guess I'll just add on to it. So there is a subdivision map that the city approves called the vesting tentative map that locks in the rules and regulations at the time and it freezes it. So this is one of only a couple projects that remain, those entitlements remain valid for the entire life of the vesting tentative map. And the city can't go back later and change the rules. And that's part of the, it's in the Subdivision Map Act. It's part of what's built in to the regulations. So this layout and area of disturbance was basically agreed upon many, many years ago. I think it's almost 20 years ago, right? When the really original vesting tentative map was approved. So we have very little flexibility at this point regarding the impact area, because it's part of the original project approvals. It's different than if the project was being proposed today from scratch.
I'm going to withdraw my motion.
Thank you, Patrick.
Yeah, I mean, just to follow up though, you were saying those were the options. It's a little bit of a blurry screen. So for if it's that's what I guess is the question is if it's kickback, is there further aggressive enforcement of the tree replacements numbers or fees or anything like that? If there's not, we're honoring a previous plan, of course, then there isn't really a path forward in that method. If further enforcement and if further measures aren't really available, then we have to honor, city's previous commitments.
In response to that, I would say that we have to allow the parking lot and the building to go forward. If the replacement trees, to meet the replacement ratio, we can look at the existing, we can ask the landscape team to go back and look at additional plantings within those areas and further expansion of additional trees in the landscape areas. But we can't go back at this point and ask them to build an underground parking garage. We could have done that in 2000. We can't do that today.
Okay, go ahead. Did you have any other comments, Brian? The point of public comment and discussion on this has already been closed. Thank you.
Why can't you? I think that's a question that should be answered.
My comment is I didn't necessarily volunteer to be on this committee to uphold deals that were made 20 years ago, but to try to keep Monterey a beautiful place. And I'm always interested in finding wiggle room where we can not regret steps that are taken because of some deal that was made 20 years ago. So that's my stance on this. I wish there was more that we could do. I really feel bad for the citizens of Monterey that we're not doing our best to protect our environment and the beauty of our area as much as we can. I understand the need for progress. I don't necessarily understand the need for continually building more and more parking lots, because I think hopefully someday the model of everybody, driving everywhere in a car will slowly decline. So that's my 2 cents.
Kelly?
I do have a question for Kim. On that original approval for the project with the parking lot, was it specific to the amount of spaces or the ratio per square footage, or is that not locked in?
So the amount of parking is based on our municipal code, and I think it's 1 per 275 square feet of office area. And I know Chris went back, and so we went back to confirm that that parking ratio was met cumulatively between all of the buildings. And I know the answer to that is yes, but I don't remember the specific numbers.
They were required to provide 837 minimum.
Right. Yeah,
Or-
so the
I'm sorry, for the entire, the complex?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, so the original proposal actually provided a little bit more than what the minimum requirement was. In this case, since the overall floor area was reduced, there were less parking than what would have been originally approved. And then the applicant, I think, actually provided even less than that, still above the requirement by a small amount. But yeah.
I'll just add, I guess, briefly, just in a lot of projects I've worked on, there is actually, there's leanings now towards the client actually wanting to preserve more space because of that being beneficial, especially in hospitals, actually, and just in the experience of arriving to the hospital for the workers, et cetera. So sometimes those are ways to work with those companies to try and see that there is a financial incentive to them in the long run, also to preserving that landscape for various reasons. But I think that's all I have to say about that for now.
Go ahead and entertain a motion or make a call for a motion if anyone would like to propose one.
I think it's a conflicted committee, but and I guess so. It feels like, do we need to have more?
Do we, if we're at a point where we're
deliberation
not
or-
making more, what is our, what are our options to proceed?
Oh, like I said, you could separate the approvals. I mean, separate the tree removal permit from the AR permit. You could require more mitigation, more replacements. Or you could ask staff to explore that with the applicant as a condition of approval. We could explore the off-site replacement, even though we don't do that very often. There is the option of an in lieu fee, although we also don't do that often. I think it would be something that staff could work with the applicant.
Would it be possible to make a recommendation to, we like to approve things. I think that's, we like this. We want to see more things happen. This has, I think, generally good design, good architecture. With the parameters that were given, it seems quite like something I would typically approve, except for that I don't feel confident that maybe planning has worked with them to ask those questions of a fee. What would those disincentives, I guess, to remove trees do in this case? Would they incentivize to do underground parking? It sounded like that's not an option, but we don't, I think, understand why that's the case, is what I'll speak for myself. I feel less that I don't understand, and perhaps the public then doesn't understand either, which then that's kind of the purpose of this forum, right? Is to explain ourselves a little better in that regard. So it's that question.
I realize that, the comment period is closed. If you want me to discuss how underground parking does or does not preserve trees on this particular site or any other for that matter, I'd be happy to do so. I mean, and of course you have to take my opinion with a grain of salt and do your own research, I suppose, to back it up. But I'd be happy to go over that.
Yeah, I mean, I think respect your opinion. I've heard what you said. I've worked on projects like this myself as well, and know there's certainly there's an impact, but especially if you're doing it under the same footprint of the building, it's not doing as much impact. But I know there's disincentives for that financially. That's typically where that comes from, unless there's other physical issues. But all I'm saying is I think I can speak for myself, not feeling incredibly confident why, for some reason, if we're not pressuring financial disincentives or tree planting somewhere else, it's not clear why that those measures that are available weren't carried out.
So if the committee is leaning towards wanting a mitigation level at 3-to-1, and that's your requirement, you can approve the project with that condition of approval, and staff can work with the applicant to either provide it on or off site. And if we need to amend the permit regarding a fee instead, they could come back and apply for an amendment. But I believe that you could approve it with a specific replacement ratio, and then we can work with them on figuring out the location in the city that could occur.
Well, I don't even think we're talking 3-to-1. We're talking like, we're not even at 1-to-1. Yeah, I'm just gonna leave it at that.
Well, I mean, that makes sense to me. I think what you're just saying, that usually what happens is that the client then might come back, but that's their choice. So that's
and if need be, they can always appeal just that one condition if they disagree with it, or they can comply with it.
Let's see if I get this right.
Okay, go ahead.
I propose a motion to approve with a change of either 3-to-1 replacement or the fee, which I don't know what your fee structure is for that, but approval with that condition that's written in. Offsite, they're not going to be able. I agree that they wouldn't be able to fit things on site, and
Make sure you didn't forget that.
yeah. But so offsite or financial.
Can you clarify what you mean by 3-to-1 replacement? Do you mean 106 trees or 900 and like, a third of the removals, or ×3 the removals?
Well, that's so typically, again, in cities I've worked in, it's done actually by caliper, and then you replace caliper in kind, and so then that determines your number of trees. But if I'm trying to follow the code that you all have laid out, and if it's the trees that are removed, you're replacing those 3-to-1.
I think she said it was 0-to-3.
I know that's there. That's why I guess it's if it's 0-to-3, and so then I guess we're asking for that maximum of that.
Seem feasible on that site, though.
Well, that's what we're saying.
Or
is
you even
off-site.
talk just 1-to-1.
Be offsite.
Yeah, even 1-to-1 or yeah.
But
I would
again,
be happy with 1-to-1, but it just seems.
And I agree, it's not going to happen on site, and you wouldn't want to over plant on site. So it is, but it seems like there could be a higher level of enforcement of the existing code that's available. Is
But
what it
Can
seems
you
like.
Can you clarify, are you the number that you're requesting to be replaced? Because 3-to-1, like, we have 318 proposed for removal, times 3 is 954. So
Mhm.
I just want to be clear on the number that,
2-to-1 would be 630 something.
Or even just 1-to-1. Yeah.
And for all, I care that could be something the city works out, that they get that many donated street trees. There's, I think, ways to use your enforcement potential capacity to do that. And in ways that you can negotiate with different developers and things like that too, because we know that's going to be their argument, right? That's hard for us to do. But we have that code there for, I think, that purpose.
So I would suggest a mitigation ratio, and it can be done in the form of on-site, off-site, or in lieu, including maintenance costs. And you might suggest a specific ratio for each, or the same for all three of those options. And we can work with the applicant to see what they're able to procure in terms of planting on or off site, and what they're willing to contribute monetarily, and go from there.
I think that recommendation works for me. That seems
You want to
reasonable.
phrase your motion in those terms?
It's a complicated one, isn't it? I motion to approve. And number four, architecture permit review permit ARP 220177, with the condition that the removal of 318 trees has either, Chrissy said it better, let's see, has the replacement ratio is, I think we're trying to say more or less the maximum 3-to-1, or in lieu of, you have it's the maintenance costs and things as well. So there's on-site, off-site, and in lieu of maintenance costs for those in lieu fees of the maintenance costs. I think I more or less got that
Okay.
out.
Is that?
Does it make sense to read that back so we can, sorry, that was trying my best on that one.
so in your motion, is there an option for providing less than 3-to-1 replacement? But instead of providing 3-to-1, maybe doing 2-to-1 and paying a fee, or
Yes,
like,
yes.
okay, so there's a flexibility.
Yes.
Okay.
Right, the motion is made by committee member Ostavar. Second. I'll second the motion. Okay. Erica, will you do a roll call vote for us, please?
Sure. Chair Hunter,
Aye.
Vice Chair Tregenza.
Nay.
Committee Member Ostavar
Aye.
and Committee Member Schmidt.
Aye.
Okay, so we only have a vote of 3. Okay, it passes. The decision is appealable to the Planning Commission within 10 days. We have applications online or in our planning office.
Thank you. Next, we'll consider continuing item number 5, 902 Lighthouse Avenue to the March 15th meeting. Have a vote on that? Or did you want to comment, Fernanda?
So
No.
I just need to bring up an issue that came up, and so we're going to lose a quorum here fairly shortly, I believe.
Yes,
I'm okay, actually. I just.
I have till about 5:30, so. about
Okay,
half
so
an
we
hour.
will get through.
Right,
Um,
Chair Hunter was just continuing the 902 Lighthouse item right now.
So I was going to bring this up at the end of the meeting, and I guess I just need to put this out there. So 484 Lane Street is experiencing water damage because of the story poles that are up. And they're very concerned about waiting the extra time to the next meeting. One of our legal options that is available, I can't have them take down the netting because it's required for legal noticing for the code, but we can adjourn to a special meeting. And we could potentially do it for these two items. Like we could adjourn to Friday at 4 o'clock. We could, but I don't know whether committee members are available. So I'm struggling with, I have a house that's leaking, or the property owner has a house that's leaking.
Can
Right.
we just take pictures of the story poles? And then when we come back to reconvene on that, use the pictures and they can take the story poles down now?
So
They've
I
been up for the
think,
neighbors, right?
so they're up, but the problem is the code actually says the poles have to be up 10 days in advance of the meeting. We will have a procedural error because of the way the code is written.
So
So-
they haven't been put up 10 days prior to this meeting.
No, they have been.
They have been.
They're in, the way that they were installed, there were no nails put through the roof. Because of our unusual rain situation, the rain is penetrating the house right now. So either they're gonna have to tarp the structure, or I guess I'm just asking, does this group have the ability to meet this week, like on Friday?
I could do Friday.
I can do Friday,
So 2, 3, I don't know, Pam,
actually.
Justin's out of town, I think.
and,
This week is what we're asking.
Yeah,
yeah,
this Friday.
Um, I need.
I'm just concerned because someone's experiencing water damage at their home.
I can do it Friday afternoon.
I can.
Are you good, Sean? Okay, so that's.
Probably. do
We need
Friday
4.
afternoon.
Yeah.
I can probably do Friday afternoon. as well.
And then we might be able to get Zoe too, so.
Okay, so we'll just, at the end of this meeting, we'll just adjourn to a date certain.
Okay.
And you can go ahead and continue 902 Lighthouse to the March meeting, but I'm really concerned about if we could at least have the hearing for 484 Lane Street, that would be helpful.
Okay. So it's
We already
480
have a vote that 484 lane was continued to March 15th. Do they need to vote again?
They'll need to vote again.
Okay.
At the end of this meeting, we'll adjourn it to a date certain.
Okay. So should we do that now or at the end of the meeting?
We can do that at the end of the meeting. Well, why don't you continue 902 Lighthouse to March?
Okay,
15th.
so I'll call for a vote
Well,
on,
I move to continue 902 Lighthouse to the March 15th meeting.
I second.
been motion by Vice Chair Tregenza to continue 902 Lighthouse to the March 15th meeting. You do a roll call vote, please.
Chair Hunter,
Aye.
Vice Chair Tregenza.
Aye.
Committee Member Ostavar.
Aye.
And Committee Member Schmidt.
Aye.
Okay, that motion carries. That item will be continued to March 15th ARC meeting.
All right, next we'll consider item 6, 2600 Sand Dunes Drive Architectural Review Application ARP -23-0026 for exterior alterations to the existing hotel property. Okay, staff have a presentation.
Yes, thank you. My name is Fernanda Roveri, Principal Planner for the City of Monterey. This application is for exterior alterations at the existing hotel property at 2600 Sand Dunes Drive. The staff recommendation is that the ARC approve the resolution approving exterior alterations. This site is zoned visitor accommodation facility, which allows hotel uses. And it's the land use designation is commercial. Currently on site, there is an existing 4-story hotel with meeting rooms, a porte cochere, parking lots, pool, decks, and other amenities. The city charter requires that the Architectural Review Committee review any non-structural alterations proposed to a property in the visitor accommodation facility zone. So this is why this application is before you today. This application, because it also contains structural alterations, required planning commission review, which happened yesterday. The planning commission approved the structural alterations. However, they recommended that the ARC address the parking lot lighting because they saw it on the plans. However, the lighting was not a structural alteration, but they wanted the ARC to address it. So the extent of improvements includes both structural and non-structural alts. And this is the parking lot lighting that the planning commission wanted the ARC to address. There is a note on sheet AA 100 of the plans, which are in Exhibit A. And the note says B42, replace existing site lighting in kind. So these are the 3 parking lot lights here. There was a public comment made during the planning commission meeting about those lights shining onto the adjacent Sand Dunes Drive and potentially also being visible from Highway 1. And so staff is recommending a new condition of approval that the applicants submit updated electrical plans that show these lights will be encased, meaning fully cut off, not create glare and shine downward to not have an impact on the adjacent roads. This is the site viewed from the north. And I'm just going to show you now the other exterior alterations proposed. There is a porte cochere at the in front of the lobby, and there's an area of the porte cochere that is proposed to be demolished. I will show you that in more detail. The structural alterations that the Planning Commission already approved include stairs on the south and north sides of the hotel to allow for better exiting routes for hotel visitors and staff. This is the porte cochere existing. And here are photos of what it looks like underneath. And the proposal is to expose the beams underneath and delete the portion that is on top of the existing planter. And so the proposal also includes new landscaping at that planter. This is the existing view of the north side of the hotel. And these are the stairs that were approved on the north side.
Can you go back one slide? Thank you. Thank you.
This is the south side of the hotel, and these are the stairs for the south side. These are the elevation drawings, just showing the stairs. No other massing is proposed. Everything else is a renovation or replacement of existing features. This is the detail of the railing. All of the railing will be replaced with wood railing. The stairs will also have the same wood railing. These are the existing hotel colors. And the proposed colors are different shades of gray. They're actually proposing to paint the floor of the hotel corridors with this checkered gray pattern. And this is a mock-up of the proposed colors. So the dark gray would be the wall color, and the wood railing would be a lighter gray. All of the lighting, corridor lighting, is proposed to be replaced with these hidden sconces. The pool is proposed to be given a facelift. it wouldn't get bigger, but the fencing would be painted and the cosmetic upgrades would be made to the furniture and the fence. This is the proposed color scheme for the fence
That's inside?
inside. Yes. There is an adjacent meeting room building called the Bayview Center that is also proposed to have the same color scheme. And they're also proposing to replace all the signage for rebranding purposes. And that will be required to receive a sign permit in the future. This is a view of the existing hotel. And these are some barbecue or fireplace areas outside. The proposed siding, form and mass, architectural style would be appropriate for the project. So the stairs would be exposed, as you saw, which reduces the appearance of massing. And also the siding of the stairs would not be readily visible from the front of the hotel. The new stairs and renovated porte cochere, railing system and roof system would match the hotel's existing architectural style. The project would not unreasonably impair the view's privacy or living environment. The stairs would not pose an issue to views or privacy. There were no view impairments identified. And the other renovations consist of repairing existing systems in kind or with similar or same materials. The project is consistent with the general plan as well as all applicable design guidelines. The project is designed to maintain the commercial character of the building, and all the renovations are commercial in nature. The finishes, colors, materials, landscaping, lighting, and fencing are appropriate. Most of them consist of repairs. The finishes would be wood for the railing, metal for the repaired mansard roofs, and muted colors to complement the natural beach setting. As conditioned, the site and building lighting would be encased, not create glare and shine downward. The recommendation is to approve the exterior alterations with the added condition that we receive updated electrical plans to show that the lighting will have no off-site impact. I'm available for questions, and the applicant is also here.
Okay, thank you, Fernanda. Any questions for staff?
Regarding the lighting, is an alternative shorter light poles also?
That was not part of their proposal. So if you think that would help reduce any glare, you could propose that, or propose that staff explore that with the applicant.
Any other questions?
Actually, sorry, one other question. The stairs, that's those are, the reason they're there is because they're required by code, given the slight change in use, is that?
I do not know the exact answer to that. I just know that they were added to provide better exiting, and they exit onto the parking lots on either side.
Thank you.
All right, no other questions of the committee. Does the applicant like to make a statement or comment? Nope. Okay. All right. If none there, I'll open up for comments from members of the public on this item. Any in the chamber? Anyone online, Erica?
There are 6 attendees, but there are no hands raised.
Okay. All right. So if with that, I'll open up for comments from the committee members on the project. I think this is a nice looking change, overall fits the style that is there. And with the condition of approval for the lighting and reducing its impact to the neighbors, I think is a good idea.
I agree. I'm familiar with this hotel and it's been pretty dated and looking a little run down. And I think the improvements that are been proposed are a nice addition and will definitely look nicer from the freeway and driving by. So I commend the new design.
I'll second both of those comments.
I agree. I think the lighting on something like this, that's close to the water, the lighting will be very visible. And so that is typically something I think we should be concerned with. And I think the full cutoff lighting will help tremendously. I see that even the sconces on the balconies is an improvement that'll help in that regard, which is really good. And sometimes you can also reduce that even more by shortening those lights. You have to add more typically, but I don't know the studies if there's a certain spread that they're looking for. I'd be fine with approving and with the city going through. Sorry, that was questions only. Yeah. Okay.
All right. I'll entertain a motion.
We were in comments. Sorry. Yeah. So that was the recommendation that they still explore perhaps increasing the number and shortening them, because that would help even more. But I'm happy with the staff making the decision based on any studies in that regard.
Make a motion,
Please.
I move to approve 2600 Sand Dunes Drive architecture review application ARP 23-0026 for exterior alterations to an existing hotel property with the condition that the parking lot lighting, some changes are made and that the applicant is going to work with Monterey City staff on that part of the project. Basically a dark sky solution with no visible glare on the beach or on the nearby roadways.
Second.
I second.
All right, the motion has been put forward by Vice Chair Tregenza to approve 2600 Sand Dunes Drive ARP -23-026 for external alterations to the property, and with the condition of approval for as listed in the staff report for limiting the impact of lighting on there, and the change to the electrical plan for that. So that, Erica, will you do a roll call vote for us, please?
Sure. Chair Hunter,
Aye.
Vice Chair Tregenza,
Aye.
Committee Member Ostabar.
Aye.
And Committee Member Schmidt.
Aye.
Okay, that motion carries with a vote of 4. The decision is appealable to the Planning Commission within 10 days. We have applications online or in our planning office.
Thank you. Good luck with the project. Thank you. Next, we'll like to adjourn or move 484.
So since we will be losing a quorum, we're required to adjourn to Friday at.
We have 10 minutes.
We do, but the unfortunate part is we called the applicant and the neighbor and told them not to show up. So
Okay, got it.
yeah, I've been sitting here contemplating that. Maybe you should take a vote to overturn
Okay.
I know we're going to adjourn to the Friday.
I move to put aside the approved continuance for March 15th for 484 Lane Street and move to reconvene on Friday, March 3rd at 4 p.m.
I'll second that.
And I only have one comment. So we'll have a quorum there. I also have to confirm that our video provider can, that we
Be
have
here.
to televise the meeting. If we can't make that happen, then we're not going to be able to hold the meeting, and the adjourned meeting will just and we'll have to have the meeting in March or
March 15th.
the March, whatever your regular meeting date is. So
Yeah.
I
So I
will,
amend my motion
You're-
to include, provided we have a quorum and we are able to have all the technical capabilities that we need for that time.
thank you.
Second. All right, the motion has been put forth by committee member Schmidt to set aside our continuance for 484 Lane Street. And that we will, and that has been seconded by committee member Ostavar. And with that, we will adjourn until Friday, March 3rd at 4 p.m. Pending a quorum of the committee and the technical resources for online presentation. All right. Okay. Any other comments, questions? All right, thank you very much. I adjourn this meeting at 5:25.